It's an end of another great week. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Newsdesk. My name is Faustina Safo. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125. Coming up this morning, lawyers for businessman Richard Jakpa files an application for court order striking out charges against him. We have details as the Office of the Attorney General welcomes a request by the minority leader for a live media broadcast of his trial. Also,
we have no objection to that request, but of course, subject to the discretion of the Chief Justice, because we believe in transparency, we believe in accountability, and we abhor misreporting.
Also in this bulletin, Ghana's import bill in the first quarter of 2024 shoots up to $100 million as the country struggles to stabilize the cedi, which has lost more than 20% of its value against the US dollar since the beginning of the year.
So between 2022 and 2023, we are recording about a 42.2 billion Ghana cedis from an exports point of view, representing 30% increase in our total exports between 2022 and 2023.
We have details of the stories and more here on Newsdesk. My name is Faustina Safo. Take a seat. Be my guest. Thanks for choosing us for your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Now we start with lawyers for the third accused in the controversial ambulance case, Richard Jakpa, because they have filed an application in court for an order striking out charges against him. In his affidavit in support of this, Mr. Jakpa testifies on oath that the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah has had several interactions with him in which he has admitted that Mr. Jakpa, was innocent and assured him of his acquittal. Well, member of our legal affairs desk, Kweku Asante, joins us live with details. Kweku, first of all, tell us about the reliefs the applicant is seeking from the court and the law he bases this application on.
Well, Faustina, this is all based on the interaction between Mr. Jakpa and the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah. This is the new allegation that Richard Jakpa is making through his lawyers studies or in court. They are seeking two main reliefs. One, striking out the charges and accordingly terminating the proceedings against the third accused applicant, that is the third accused person, or alternatively, a stay of the proceedings before the court against the third accused applicant. They base this on the Constitution of Ghana. They say that the Attorney General, at whose instance the third accused is being prosecuted in this instance suit, has brought the charges, instituted the proceedings in abuse of the process of the court and contrary to the constitutional obligations and Article 23 and 296 of the 1992 Constitution. They then proceed to talk about how they believe that the Attorney General has been abusing his discretionary and prosecutory powers contrary to Articles 23, 88.3 and 296 of the Constitution. And they say that in engagements with the third accused person, the Attorney General has admitted to him, Richard Jakpa, that there's no case against him, for which reason they believe the court must order that the charges against him be struck out.
People who haven't been following the case so far, let's do a little background. Where did Jakpa meet the AG, and where does he now claim the AG did tell him that he was actually not guilty of these charges?
Well, so the antecedent of this case, we all know, 2 weeks ago, under cross-examination, specifically on the 23rd of May, when matters around the letters of credit came up, for which reason Jakpa made this case. But if you look at these amendments that have been sworn to, it says that Honorable Dame met the accused person. Those details are not gone into in this application. We assume that it will come up under cross-examination should this application be granted for a mini trial. So, and it says under paragraph 16 that Honorable Dame explained to me, that is Richard Jakpa, that this case had to be undertaken because of pressure from the former finance minister, Kenneth Fuyata, and the president, and assured him repeatedly that he was not the target of the prosecution. It is based on this interaction that Jakpa had with Richard Godfred Dame, that he says a relationship of trust developed between them, because he believed that since Dame is a lawyer and the person who initiated the prosecution, he assured him that as an agent, he was not in law liable for the principal's action, that is Big C's conduct in the entire contract. I was very well aware that I now trusted him. Honorable Dami told me that he was informed that during the investigations, I had some documents I could share with him and I shared with Yoko. My first hunch was that Mr. Dami was abusing the trust I hold with him. And also that he came assuring me that as an agent, I was not liable for the acts of this principal, that he, the Attorney General, had filed a submission contesting my submission of no case. Indeed, he says that the Attorney General had an agreement with him that if he did file a submission of no case by the court, he would not oppose it for him to be acquitted ultimately. But the Attorney General went against this promise and challenged the statement of no case that was filed in court. Again, he said that the Attorney General explained to him that if he were also to be acquitted, just like Amanima, the second accused person has been acquitted, it will expose the strategy of the Attorney General that he was indeed only going after the minority leader, Dr. Keselato Fosi, for which reason he believed he still must be in this suit.
Well, Jakpa says in his affidavits that the AG told him again that he was under pressure from the president and a minister to bring those charges against him and the minority leader. Tell us more about that. Yes,
in fact, we know that this case was filed just around the time that the e-levy debate was hot in Parliament. In 2021, the 2022 budget was presented, and the minority leader now then was the ranking member on the Finance Committee, and he was leading the minorities charge against this. The claim by Richard Jakpa is that because of the minority leader's opposition to the 2022 budget and also the e-levy that was in the budget, the finance minister then, Ken Ofori-Atta, and President Akufo-Addo impressed on him, the AG, to file these charges as though the idea was to muzzle Keselato Fosi so that he could drop his insistence. And it seemed that he was not going to drop the insistence. They were willing to see this through. So this application has been filed. They are demanding a mini trial of a sort within the bigger trial so that he wants to be under oath. The Attorney General can cross-examine him. Lawyers for the minority leader can also cross-examine him. His lawyers can also lead also for the evidence in chief. He says he will prove this case and the charges against him must be dropped.
Thank you so much, Kweko Asante, member of our Legal Affairs Desk here at Joy News. But let's bring in Lawyer Lamting Apanga to get a better understanding about the legal proceedings. Now, thank you for your time here on News Desk. First off, is there precedence for this new application to present the evidence from Jakpa to the court?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to your listeners. I'm speaking to you from the court premises in Bolga, so in case the internet is not sustainable, you should bear with me.
Sure.
Great. So this is quite a novel application, a novel issue. I do not remember in my almost 12 years practice of the law having experienced a thing of this sort. And so it is quite novel. We do not have established precedents within our jurisdiction, but there are some precedents outside the jurisdiction of Ghana, within the other jurisdictions in UK and in US and India, but and even Nigeria as well. But those ones will only have persuasive impact on the courts and not have any binding precedents on the court in Ghana. And so there are no such precedents in my knowledge.
Can they hold a mini trial within the main trial? And what form will it take?
Yes, mini trials are allowed in criminal proceedings. For instance, during the admission of evidence by the prosecution, particularly when the prosecution witness, usually the CID, intends to tender in evidence, which is a statement taken by an accused person. And the accused person says that I am not the one who made this statement, or this statement was made under coercion or some undue influence. The judge will hold a mini trial within the entire trial. It means that the entire proceedings will be suspended in a way to allow the matter in respect of the admission of that particular evidence to be determined. So the court will now call on the prosecution to prove whether or not this particular statement was taken at a time when the person was in sound mind, was no undue influence, the presence of his lawyer, he was given all the rights. The person or the accused person also making the allegation that the statement was taken out of some undue influence or some coercion or some other contrary position will also lead evidence, whether he was beaten, if he can show, by way of medical report, by way of persons who were there when he was being beaten, or he can show that this is not his signature and that he was compelled to sign it, or some other thing. And then the court, at the end of that mini trial, will determine whether or not the particular document can be admitted in evidence or otherwise. If the court comes to a conclusion it cannot be admitted in evidence, it's marked as X and rejected. If the court, at the end of the mini trial, comes to a conclusion that the document is admissible, it is admitted in evidence, and the court proceed with the trial. So in this particular instance, the court may, under the circumstance that we find ourselves, the court may have to determine this application. The court will determine how it's going to go through the determination of the application, either summarily or by taking evidence.
And how will this affect the actual case? Because currently it's very topical. The minority in Parliament are already serving notice that they're going to push for the AG to be removed. The minority leader himself wants the case proper to be telecast live. There are also concerns about the AG's interaction with Richard Jakpa behind doors. What's your thoughts about how the case is panning out so far?
Well, I must also sound a word of caution out there that the matter is still pending before a court. So it's quite difficult and it's unethical per our rules of conduct to make pronouncements on the likely outcome or otherwise of the case. But saved for public education, I could just say that the substantive matter, which is the criminal trial of Atuforse and Richard Jakpa, would proceed as it is supposed. The only person who has power to perhaps at this stage curtail it is the AG. He can file a nolle prosequi to say that he's not interested in proceeding the matter again, and then perhaps start. Then that, but that does not exactly clear them entirely of their allegations. It means that they will start a fresh prosecution in another court or even in that same court. On the other hand, the case will proceed because the Attorney General does not intend or has not expressed any intention to withdraw or discontinue the matter. What has happened will be determined by the court. The court will go into it and make a determination. And at the end of the day, in making the final analysis, the court would consider all the evidence, including this. If any of this is established, under normal circumstance, it must inure to the benefit of the accused, because the rule is that their guilt must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. And where there is doubt, reasonable doubt, it must inure to the benefit of the accused person. And so it is likely that if the court would make a determination and continue the matter, the substantive matter, at the end of the day, the court will consider all the evidence, including this evidence, and see whether or not this evidence has any bearing on the entire allegation. And if this evidence has any bearing on the entire allegation, then it should inure under normal circumstances to the benefit of the court of the accused person. But I'm not a judge, and I'm not here to say how the outcome will be. It is for the court to determine. So let's leave the merits out at this stage.
Lawyer Lapteng Apanga, thank you for your time here on Newsdesk. Meanwhile, the minority leader, Dr. Kesela Atuforse, is impressing on the Chief Justice, Konongo, to allow a live broadcast of his ongoing trial because of the public interest in the case has generated a lot of conversations. Now, there has been heightened public interest on the case after the other accused person, businessman Richard Jakpa, alleged in open court that the AG has been impressing on him to incriminate the minority leader. Well, the Office of the Attorney General says it's not opposed to this, and the request by the minority leader to allow a live broadcast in his trial is actually going to help the interest of justice in the country. Listen to Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah.
We have no objection to that request, but of course, subject to the discretion of the Chief Justice, because we believe in transparency, we believe in accountability, and we abhor misreporting. And so, if the Chief Justice, in her wisdom, decides that this matter should be live, we have no objection to say. In fact, the AG at different fora had indicated that when it comes to public interest matters, or matters where the public has that kind of interest, it will be the interest of justice that such proceedings are broadcast live on tele and on radio. So we have no objection to it. But as I said, the CJ has the final say. Not only the broadcast, we're also looking at a situation where we have day-to-day hearing so that we can get to the end of this matter as soon as possible. So the broadcast, if possible, may have to go with day-to-day hearing so that we can get to the end of this particular matter.
Just give me a bit of education here. If you look at Article 296, exercise of discretionary power, it says, where in this constitution or in any other law discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, A, that discretionary power should be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious or biased either by resentment, prejudice or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with the due process of the law. Now, looking at this, was your department fair and candid in rejecting a plea that was paying almost 90% of a debt for which you were prosecuting some people?
We were fair and candid. The discretion vested in the Attorney General to either reject or accept such an offer was properly exercised. And for that matter, we have no reservations or problems with regard to the decision taken by the Attorney General in rejecting the offer. When it comes to prosecution, it is the Attorney General's responsibility to mount criminal prosecution. And so, in his wisdom, and based on the offer made, the Attorney General decided that this offer ought to be rejected, and same was rejected.
Deputy Attorney General there, Alfred Tuayebwa, speaking to my colleague Samuel Kojobrace on Top Story yesterday. Now, some residents of Jirapa municipality have voiced their anger and frustration about the purported decision by the Chief Justice, Richard Jakpa, to transfer the case involving the gruesome murder of the owner of Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Eric Johnson, to Kumasi. Now, in a petition to the Chief Justice ahead of his trial and burial on Saturday, a group calling itself Concerned Youth of Jirapa stated that the transfer of the case will not only impede the justice they are seeking, but will come at a great cost to them as well. Now, they have to travel to Kumasi each time there's a court session. Joy News Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Jirapa.
For close to 4 months, they have been grieving.
I can't talk. I'm not of West. But the Almighty God and the people of Jirapa, that's in Dharma, all the elders of Jirapa should get up. Whatever they can do to bring justice, we are behind them.
They are grieving over the loss of a man they considered an oak tree whose importance and philanthropy has gone beyond the boundaries of its over 3 kilometers square Royal Cozy Hills Hotel and Safari Resort, and by extension the Jirapa municipality. Eric Johnson was gruesomely murdered in cold blood on February 10 this year at his private residence. 3 persons, including former human resource manager of his hotel, Ilyasa Afanyiche Mahama, and Belinda Miller, have been arrested in connection with his murder and were billed to appear at the Wahai Court last week for the commencement of the trial. The presiding judge, Justice Yusuf Asibi, however, adjourned the case to June 12 following a letter purported to have been written by the Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Tekonu, transferring the case out of the Wahai Court to another High Court in Kumasi for the trial. Ahead of his burial slated for this weekend, close family members, landlords, market women, persons with disabilities, and tricycle operators under the banner of Concerned Youth of Jirapa municipality are incensed about the decision of the Chief Justice. They have therefore petitioned the Chief Justice to rescind her decision, urging her not to look only at the interests of the first accused murder, but the interests of the sea of people whose interest is hinged on the case, and allow the status quo to remain. John Apolong is the public relations officer of the Jirapa Municipal Youth Association, and he read a petition on their behalf.
the petition by his mother, which is under consideration, to relocate the proceedings has been received with grave concern, caused great distress and suspicion of the possible miscarriage of justice within the Jirapa municipality, the Upper West region, and at large, Ghana. As aggrieved citizens seeking justice and fairness, we believe that justice must be done in this case. As you reckoned, the jury has already been impaneled, and the High Court is ready to hear the case. The transfer could further delay and undermine the integrity of the judicial process. This is unjust and prejudicial, and we register our resentment via this petition as members of the deceased family.
Chairman of the Jirapa Municipal Youth Association, Jude Kobe, stated that due to their vested interest in the case, they will have to follow it keenly by appearing at each court session, but with a purported transfer, they will not be able to because of the huge costs involved.
And we are appealing to the Lordship, the government, and I trust President Akufo-Addo that they should try their best to reverse this decision of sending this matter to Kumasi. For me, as a youth chairman, I'm always very frank. If this matter is not referred to WA and it's still going to Kumasi, with my colleagues and the whole youth and the Jirapa municipality, the Tendamas and everybody, who will take a different step. And that different step that we'll take, it will not spare. It will not help the government and whoever in Ghana. That's our decision. Honestly, we are not happy about what is going on. Why will one person, somebody is suspected to kill somebody, that is, I mean, feeding a whole lot of people. The mother is at court and they said that person mother have appealed to the Lordship that the matter should be sent to Kumasi High Court. Is that we don't have a High Court in WA? Or are they telling us the High Court in WA, the judges are no good?
It is not only the youth who were here. We saw market women and the Tendames who also poured their effusions about the situation.
We still plead that it should be done and be done right. And the right thing to be done is not to transfer to anywhere. Not anywhere, not even Buane, because our regional capital is WA, and so shall it be.
You want to take the case away from us to Kumasi. What are you thinking of us? Is Jirapa not in Ghana? Or we are strangers and not Ghanaians. Our regional capital is WA and not Kumasi. We won't accept it.
Listening to the conversations around, you will know that Eric Johnson is being described as one man who is a generator that lives several thousands of bulbs in the Jirapa community and beyond. What the people are calling for is nothing but justice. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Jirapa.
Away from the courts now, fresh data contained in the Ghana Statistical Service 2022, 2023, 2024 first quarter trade vulnerability report has revealed that Ghana's total import bill went up by $100 million between the first quarter of this year and that of last year. Now, this comes at a time when the country is battling continuous exchange rate fluctuations as the cedi sheds more than 20% of its value against the American greenback in the retail market. Well, the reports indicate that significant decline in cocoa export inflows, which have been a reliable source of shelter for the cedi. Listen to government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna-Anim, who announced these statistics yesterday.
So between 2022 and 2023, we are recording about a 42.2 billion Ghana cedis from an exports point of view, representing 30% increase in our total exports between 2022 and 2023. From an import perspective, in 2023, the total value of our imports stood at 180.7 billion Ghana cedis relative to 148.6 billion Ghana cedis. Keep in mind the rate of growth for exports relative to the rate of growth for imports. I did indicate that the rate of growth for exports between 2022 and 2023 was 42.2 billion Ghana cedis, and in the case of imports, we were recording 32.1 billion Ghana cedis. So while we are seeing an increase in exports of 42.2 billion Ghana cedis between 2022 and 2023, in the case of imports, we saw a 32.1 billion Ghana cedis. So clearly, between 2022 and 2023, we were doing more on the side of exports than imports. The storyline slightly changes if you look at it from the US-denominated point of view. That is where we begin to think about the exchange rate implications on our external trade, both from an export perspective and from an import perspective. While we clearly saw an increase from both an export and an import perspective, in the case of the Ghana cedi denominated, in the case of the USD denominated, we saw relatively a decline for both exports and imports between 2022 and 2023, specifically with exports declining by 0.8 billion US dollars relative to 2.0 billion US dollars between 2022 and 2023, increasing by about 3.4 percentage points over this time period. We turn the conversation to cocoa. As was indicated, while we saw a consolidation in the position of gold in the first quarter of 2024, in the case of cocoa, we saw a decline in its share by 8.5 percentage points. What is of importance to us is the performance of cocoa in the first quarters of the last 4 years. In the first quarters of the last 4 years, we have consistently seen that we get the largest return from cocoa in the first quarter of every year. In 2021, the highest was in the first quarter. In 2022, the highest was in the first quarter. In 2023, the highest was in the first quarter, averaging about 895 million US dollars for these quarters in the last 3 years.
Let me bring in data analyst here, Joe News, Isaac Ofeje, to get us more details about this. Let's start with Ghana's import bill for the quarter of this year. How did we jump to $100 million?
The most important aspect of the trade statistics that was released yesterday was the import bill, because we always say that we don't print dollars in the country, and so inflows are very important so as to also track the amount of dollars even in source of Ghana. And it's usually the import side that puts a lot of pressure on the available dollars. So we decided to compare the first quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. And in nominal terms, the figure increased from an import bill of $3 billion to $100 million.
Kofi, you have to position rightly for me because I seem to be losing you there. And I know that we're doing a lot of focus on the topic, and what we are treating now is Ghana's import bill. We've jumped to $100 million between the first quarter of this year. Now, it comes at a time when the country is battling with inflation and the continuous depreciation of the cedi, and this is raising questions about how we're going to sustain our gains moving forward, because we have lost about 20% of our value against the dollar in the retail market. Kofi, whilst you position rightly for me, I would like to find out, this report focuses more on Ghana and our exports, especially with the cocoa industry, and why we are failing to export as much as we were used to. Tell us more about that. Kofi, I'm asking, a lot of focus was put on Ghana's export and our cocoa sector. We are not exporting as much as we used to, and this is actually affecting our gains when it comes to the value of the cedi. Tell us more about this in the report.
Well, so the government statistician stressed on it, the importance of cocoa in terms of stabilizing the cedi, because if you do all the seasonalization in terms of the big guys that brings in dollars, I'm talking about gold, cocoa, oil, and others. It is cocoa that we can call one of our own because whatever we get, we're able to keep more than 90% of it. And so when there's a drop in terms of the inflows, it becomes problematic and it affects the stability of the cedi. The reason why there's a big problem this time around is that if you compare the first quarter figures of each year, if you're comparing that of last year to that of this year, then cocoa inflows, or how much we used to get from cocoa, has dropped by more than $233 million. $233 million is huge if you compare it to how much we're even looking for from the IMF in terms of the third tranche. So it means that, to have a drop of $200 million from between last year first quarter and this year first quarter is really, really significant to drop from an inflow of more than $800 million in the first quarter to now somewhere below $600 million, and that's a big problem.
In this trade vulnerability report, concerns have also been raised about the cedi and how it's going to affect trade moving forward. We also understand that Russia featured heavily in this report. What was the revelation?
Well, so the Statistical Service put focus on the key, import origins where we usually get our imports from. And as you can see, we've been tracking the top 5. And if you compare 2022 to that of 2023, there's a sharp difference in terms of the makeup of that top 5. At 2022, we had the first being China. China has been able to consolidate its position as number 1 in 2022 and also number 1 in 2023. But when you come to 2023, there's a difference. And one country has been replaced. A country that used to be second in 2022 is no more in the top 5 list. I'm talking about UK, which has been replaced by Russia. Why is it so important to talk about Russia is because of the geopolitical tensions and the talk around Russia and the fact that most of their goods flowing into countries, sanctions have been placed on it. And one of such commodity is oil and gas. But what we say is that that is the kind of good that we are actually importing from Russia, fuels and oil and gas, and it's been able to replace UK in the top 5 list, of course.
Kofi, thank you so much for your time here on NewsDesk. Let's do some other stories now. Presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Bawumia, has asserted that Ghana would be better positioned to benefit from the 4th Industrial Revolution under his watch. He explained that the government has already laid the foundation by implementing the digitalization agenda. He said this at various encounters with clergy and Muslim clerics, traditional authorities, and the youth in Ho during his tour of the Volta region.
Dr. Bawumia and his team began his tour with separate meetings with clergymen and Muslim clerics where he shared his vision to transform Ghana. He touched on his digitization agenda, the transformation of the agricultural sector, the introduction of a flat tax system, and reduced import duty, among others.
To bring in about 200 buses this year, electric vehicles, to do a proof of concept so that everybody will see how the electric buses can bring down the cost, and then we will take it from there. But if you don't bring down the cost of transport, so many people of our population rely on public transport. Most of our population, maybe 80–90%, rely on public transport. So bringing down the public transport cost will bring down the cost of living.
Addressing the traditional authorities at the Volta Region House of Chiefs, he stressed his commitment to positioning Ghana to reap from the 4th Industrial Revolution through digitization.
And I believe that we can do even better in the 4th Industrial Revolution than many of the advanced countries that we see, it is possible for us to do better even than the advanced countries. Sometimes when I say this, many people do not understand. And then I say that, look, the foundation of the digital society, any digital society, is digital ID. Everybody must be digitally identified, must have a unique identity.
The president of the Volta Region House of Chiefs, Togbe Teprehudu, implored Dr. Bawumia to use his influence to resolve chieftaincy disputes in the country.
I was telling some of my colleague chiefs that I was counsel to one of the factions in the Abudu Adani conflict so many years ago. Your Excellency, the cost aspect of that alone is mind-boggling. I therefore want to make a special plea to you that it is an issue which is dear to the heart of the institution. And I'll urge you to do all you can to assist judicial committees, right from the Traditional Council to the National House of Chiefs, to nip this canker in the bud.
The team made their way to the whole central market where Dr. Bawumia was mobbed by the traders. They sang NPP-affiliated songs and swamped Dr. Bawumia as he made his way through the market to familiarize himself with the traders. He wrapped his store with the Youth Connect, where he addressed students, artisans and the youth, urging them to elect him as the next president of Ghana. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News.
Consistent standoff between farmers and contractors working on the Konongo bypass road project over unresolved compensation is negatively affecting progress of the work. Well, early this month, residents who once farmed on the area designated for the bypass prevented the road contractors from performing their duties. Project consultant engineer Eric Pramensa explained some equipment were destroyed by the farmers who besieged the construction site, demanding compensation. The 15.4-kilometer Konongo bypass is part of the ongoing efforts by government to dualize the Accra-Kumasi highway to help reduce vehicular traffic and accidents on that stretch. Nail Jima has more in this report.
In the early part of May, the farmers who are yet to be fully compensated by government took to the construction site to register their displeasure. The construction company had to cease operations for days as aggrieved persons burnt ties and blocked roads to the site. Some of the farmers between Yaokwe and Odumase stretch have now received part of their compensation as the valuation team go through processes to finalize payment. Consultant for the project, engineer Eric Pramensa, gives details of the situation.
Initially, some were compensated partly. But then they are calling for full compensation. And you know the valuation team must come in, they have to do assessment and a lot of paperwork. Just that they are not trying to be patient. That's all. The issue is that they don't want to be patient with us. We try to explain to them the modalities of this valuation work and they don't understand. And then even they damaged one of our bulldozers. Yeah, one of them, they damaged it. But as I said, we are working on it. The government has given us assurance that the money will be released to them soon.
The 15.4-kilometer Konongo bypass is part of the ongoing efforts by government to dualize the Accra-Kumasi highway to reduce vehicular traffic and accidents. Over 7 kilometers of swampy areas have been excavated and filled with boulders. So far, the contractors have completed the clearing of road alignments and are progressing with construction of culverts, bridges and earthworks. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah has toured the project site to assess progress of work. Construction is about 46% complete, 2 months ahead of project period.
There are two contractors, Mr. Kofi Job Construction Limited and Joshop Company Limited. They are all doing very well, and unfortunately, a greater portion of the road is swampy. So they've done a lot of work for about 7 kilometers. They've done excavation of the bad material and filled it with boulders. As you can witness, this is the end of the 7-kilometer portion.
For Joy News, Nana Ojima, Kumasi.
You're still watching News X. We're taking a quick breather. We'll be back with Business to Say.
Hi, welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. The Ghana Employers Association is backing the Social Security and National Insurance Trust on its decision to offset its stakes in 6 Ghanaian hotels. According to the association's president, Dr. Emmanuel Edusa-Akodia, the action protects the interests of contributors since the continuous running of the hotels by SNIT will impose a heavy cost burden on the State Pension Trust. He spoke at the 3rd Annual Leadership Conference of the Ghana Employers Association, which seeks to deliberate on policies that support the elevation of women to higher leadership levels. Here's more.
Ghana Employers Association instituted the annual leadership conference in 2022 to bring leaders together from various institutions and at different levels to deliberate on policies that support the elevation of women to higher leadership levels. The conference also serves as a graduation ceremony for women who completed their training in the flagship Female Future program. This year, 65 participants graduated from cohort 5 and 6 of the program. President of the Ghana Employers Association, Dr. Emmanuel Edusa-Akodia, explains why the association's mandate is to ensure gender equity.
Ghana Employers Association is committed to the development of human capital, and this particular program is geared towards the development of female human capital to make its contribution towards corporate and society as a whole. And this is the 3rd one, and it's been I would say it's been impactful, very, very impactful. You heard from yourself, 275 grad ones so far, and improving and making an impact both in the corporate as well as in social life.
Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dinah Asunabadapa, noted that she is confident the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic will pass the Affirmative Action Bill to champion gender equity.
There's been a number of agenda as far back as the 90s, where we used to joke about Beijing Conference, etc. There's been, if you look at where I'm coming from, the legal profession, we see that replicated even within the legal profession. If you go to the law faculties, if you go to the bench now, lawyers, more women are coming out. And so policy, well, I think there's that understanding. But of course, I agree with you that the Affirmative Action Bill will be the icing on the cake. I am confident that we're going to get it past this Parliament because all the stages that it has to go through. The last time I checked before Parliament went on recess was for the committee to make some amendments, which would then come back to Parliament. And then once those amendments have been made, the Honourable House will proceed to pass it.
In response to the intended sale of the Social Security and National Trust stakes to Rock City, Dr. Edusa-Akodia stated that the actions of SNIT is in the best interest of contributors.
All the hotels, with the exception of where we are all loss-making. Never paid dividend to the company, to SNIT before. And remember, hotels, after every 5 to 8 years, you have to retool them. Should we still take workers' funds to throw it back into a hotel that has not paid dividend over the last 5 to 8 years, or should we invite the private sector to come in? So I think there's no question about the principle. Principle is right, process is right. We can discuss the politics, the optics of who has won. If you ask me, I absolutely stand by it that these hotels are loss-making. They will need to be retooled. SNIT, in the light of debt exchange and all that, should not put cash behind these hotels, but rather call private sector to put in money.
This year's leadership conference, which was held on the theme Breaking Barriers, Women Leading the Charge in New Frontiers, also coincided with the 5th anniversary of the flagship Female Future program.
Now, inflation is expected to fall to 21% in May and end the year around 17%. That's according to GCB Capital. It pointed out that its decision is due to base effects. Here's more.
Inflation has been nosediving since the beginning of the year. GCB Capital expressed concern about the anticipated pass-through of the current spate of cedi depreciation and its lagged impact. It added that the second round effect remained an upside risk to the near-term outlook. Again, the multiple upward adjustments in ex-pump petroleum prices, which result in transport fare hikes and its full pass-through to the general prices, are yet to come. With the quarterly utility tariff adjustments still to come amidst the general macroeconomic uncertainties, GCB Capital said the risk of near-term inflation is quite pronounced. Inflation tumbled in April 2024 to 25.0% from 25.8% in March 2024. In response, the Monetary Policy Committee maintained an appropriately tight monetary policy stance amidst the emerging upside risks.
And that's business. The news returns after the break. Don't go anywhere.
The scramble for Africa's resources continues to pit the East against the West as Russia, China, Europe, and America deploy different strategies to acquire our vast and bountiful resources. As the black star of Africa, Ghana has almost everything these superpowers need. But what do we want in return? And who can give it to us on the best terms, the East or the West? This is the subject of the exciting new Joy News debate to mark AU Day, which was last Saturday. Join us on Friday, the 31st of May, as Dr. Yao Graham of the Third World Network, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh of CDD, Mavis Owusu-Gyamfi of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, and Professor Priscilla Chumesi-Bafo of the University of Ghana's Department of Economics engage in thought-provoking debate on the geopolitical future of Ghana and Africa. With contributions from Bright Simmons and Yao Nsako, this primetime debate is designed to spark a continental conversation on the foreign policy direction of African democracies. Should Ghana look east or west? Join the debate this Friday on Joy News. Independent, fearless, credible.
All right, and are you ready for that? Should Ghana look east or west? That's the critical question we're asking today at 6 p.m. in the Joy News studios when we bring you our Joy News National Dialogue. Joy News' Kojo Yankson and MFR Power would be your hosts. Kojo Yankson joins me in studio with what to expect. Why not north or south? Why east or west?
Well, historically, the two factions of the globe that have had influence in Africa have been the Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc. So the Western Bloc would be the United States and Europe, including the United Kingdom, obviously. And then the Eastern Bloc would be China and Russia. Now, these two factions, if you will, have all had their different strategies for building relationships with African countries. So the West tends to use debts and loans and all of these, the IMF and all of that, to have control and of resources in Africa. While China likes to bring infrastructure. They'll come and build you a few buildings and roads and give you a bit of money. But if you don't pay, the next
That's
thing
when
you know,
you have issues.
You owe them a harbor or something.
And that is why we're having issues with our external debt restructuring. And also, they also help with a lot of sales. And just today, we found out that our import duty has gone up over $100 million. But your panel is packed.
Oh, yes. Got the best of the best. Okay, so Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, who of course has been heading CDD for a few years now. Now he's somebody who has this global exposure, really understands the geopolitics of Africa. He'll be speaking alongside Dr. Yao Graham. Now he's the coordinator of Third World Network Africa. And these people just concern themselves with the development of Africa. We have contributions from Mavis Owusu-Gyamfi at the Africa Center for Economic Transformation. She'll be joining us all the way from Kenya, where she's attending an event. And then, of course, Yao Nsako. Yao Nsako is such a big part of all the thought leadership activities that we do here at Joy News. And he, of course, has this global scope of what Ghana wants and who is best placed to give it to us. We'll be hearing from Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo. She's an economist. She understands the economic implications of all of these relationships. And we'll be doing something special with tonight's dialogue. We will have Bright Simmons engaging exclusively on X.
Oh,
right? So while we're having the conversation here in the studio, he will be engaging on X and gathering thoughts and ideas, and we'll be aggregating those into the conversation here.
Kojo, I'll be looking forward to it. And you can be a part of it. You can join the conversation on our social media handles, especially X, and then get your thoughts out there. We would be reading your comments, Kojo, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are a part of this.
Yes. So, and that's it for News Desk. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Savo. Good morning.